Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Southern Outdoorsman Podcast. On this Thursday breakdown, we got a couple special guests. We're going to be talking about the Mobile Hunters Expo from a couple weeks ago, as well as some other stuff. Make sure you stick around to the end to the Q&A session. We're going to rope these fellas in on the Q&A, so it ought to be interesting. Jacob, how you doing?
Doing well, doing super well. So on the podcast, we got Chris Leppert, Josh Luck, and Rick Cates. I got everybody's name perfect, thank God. I'm super excited to have you guys on. So y'all, first off, run the Fueled by the Outdoors podcast, but also y'all run the Mobile Hunters Expo, which I'm super excited about because we just got back from Chattanooga, again, just a couple weeks ago, from the Southern show, the Expo. It was an unbelievable event. As Andrew will talk about at some point in this episode, he had so many people talking to him, he couldn't go to the bathroom. He had guys pretty much standing in line in the bathroom as he was trying to take a leak, wanting to talk to him. It was a pretty fun situation. So it is an unbelievable event. And again, we saw a ton of listeners that came to the show. And again, we heard from some of the other people on social media after the show that they should have came and they didn't make it. And shame on you guys for not coming. Okay. Also, by the way, for all the listeners out there, you can go watch this whole video on YouTube. Again, we're filming all of our podcast episodes, so you can go check it out right now on YouTube. But I guess kick us off, Chris. I'm going to turn it over to you. First off, appreciate you inviting us to come down for the expo and letting us take part, especially in the seminars and the Q&A, because, dude, it was a unbelievable event and just a room full of killers, dude. 36,000 square feet of nothing but killers at this event, dude. It was unbelievable.
We needed to change the name to just the top 10% or something, because that was incredible. Learned so much about guys from the South too. And then, on top of, our guest speakers, I mean, we got to meet Scott. What's his last name?
Seals. Scott Seals.
Seals.
Yeah.
Scott Seals. Got to meet freaking Bobby Worthington. Me and Josh were just sitting there looking at each other like, this is awesome. But yeah, always glad to have you boys. You did a great job, and we always like working together. So we're ready to get through this Northern show and then plan the year 2024. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't really talked. We talked about the expo a little bit on some of these other breakdown episodes, or these outros, but we haven't gone in a ton of detail on it because we're kind of saving it for you guys coming on the show. The show was so fascinating because, like, I went to the show last year when y'all had it in. I cannot remember the name of the town in Ohio.
The middle of nowhere.
Winchester. And it was fascinating just to go to that, and you had all these different companies and all these different people in this one venue, and to now see the venue, I mean, triple, quadruple in size, if not more so, and seeing all the companies there and seeing all the people walking around. Dude, it was just fascinating because the one thing I enjoyed about the show, and this is something I think all the listeners that went to the show kind of realized as well, everybody there was truly there to try to learn to become a better whitetail hunter. Some of the guys are extremely successful, but they're still there to try to learn. And you have other guys that are maybe just kind of starting out in maybe their hunting career, and they're just trying to pick up every little piece of information. And it was just like a melting pot of like super interested and fascinated guys and women, men and women that were at the show that were just trying to learn as much as possible in that short 2-day window of time, which, dude, we got to make it 3 days next year. I'm just going to say it right now.
Yeah, I felt really bad afterwards because we really didn't know what we were going to have staff-wise. And so we kind of played it safe. And looking back, I wish we would have done Friday differently and had like a 2 to 8, 3 to 8, 3 to 9, something like that. And then did Sunday as well, at least until, 2 or 3 o'clock. It would have added to us as well. We would have had a lot more people come, I'm sure. But also on the flip side, a lot more people could have made it, looking from their perspective and just – it would just make things a lot easier on everybody. So this year we've already changed the times for the Northern show. So we've got a 3-day show now, and it'll be like that from now on. And we'll probably even add to that. We've had companies talk about doing a dealer day. similar to the other shows where they go and, dealers can, archery shops or whoever can come and place orders and stuff. But we'll be looking into that. But we've got a few things to still hammer out. And at the end of the day, man, just such a fun time. And I know like it's our baby and we created it, but you just sit there and talk to all these people about deer hunting and how they've seen you on YouTube, heard you on a podcast, or saw a post you made. And I mean, you talking about Andrew not even being able to pee, for God's sake. I remember my phone was freaking out all day Friday, and we got out of there, and all I wanted to do was take a shower, and my phone wouldn't stop. And I finally got it to stop, and I get in the shower, and somebody knocked on the door, and I lost it. I was like, go away. I'm in the shower. I'm not talking to anyone for 12 minutes, man. Just give me this time. It was crazy. But yeah, we're doing at least a 3-day show next year.
Yeah, and that's super exciting. Josh, I want to throw it over to you real quick. I want to talk about how y'all kind of came up with the idea for the speakers for the Southern Show. Because, I mean, it was... some of the top guys y'all could have got there that all have different backgrounds, all of them are extremely successful, but they're successful in their own light in different areas of the country. Again, a lot of them in the Southeast, and it was just fascinating how y'all were able to get all these guys and that all have specific skill sets and really, from a attendee standpoint, be able to capitalize on their skill sets when it came to the seminars and the Q&As and everything at the show, which is something that's very different from what you typically would find at other deer shows. Like we're going to be going to the World Deer Expo coming up here in about a week or so, and it's going to be nothing like the Mobile Hunters Expo. It's very much like how would you describe it? Kind of like a lot of tire kicking. A lot of people just walk around, spend the afternoon.
A lot of tire kickers.
A lot of people just walk around, just want to get away from the house for a day. Versus this, you truly, people that were there, especially for the Q&A and the seminars, learned so much from these guys. So, Josh, how did y'all come up with kind of who y'all wanted and again, maybe name off some of the guys that, of course, were at the show, which some of our listeners already know, but kind of talk about, who y'all actually had for speakers and just kind of the speaker turnout.
So for our Southern show, we had, just going through the list of speakers, we had Mr. Michael Perry, who is one of the nicest. Him and his wife are wonderful. They're some of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. So we had Mr. Michael Perry, Jonathan Moreland, Daniel Lemon, Jeremy Aaron, and Josh Trollinger and Hunter Hogan were our speakers for the Southern show. So the idea kind of came up with, we had, Chris, Rick, and I, we had discussed how we want this kind of set up. And we came up with the idea last year. We all listen to different podcasts and we try and learn as much as we can from different hunters, learning different tactics from different individuals. So last year we had Jacob Emery, Jake Bush was there, Greg Staggs was there, Aaron Ritter was another.
Ritter.
Yeah. We had there, and it was the environment in which we wanted was one that was interactive. Because we like to ask questions ourselves. We like to learn as much as we can, and we like that conversation back and forth. And that's how we set it up last year, which turned out really well. So for this year, we wanted to do the same thing, just on a bigger scale. And when we were talking about doing the shows in different areas, one of the things we wanted to do is for the speakers was to make it specific for the region. So for the Southern show, we wanted a bunch of guys that were mainly from the South or hunted the South quite a bit, or were from the South and would travel and are successful in other areas, because that's what Southern hunters can relate to. So that was kind of the premise of our speaker schedule. And, we can only do so much, like Chris, Rick, and I, when we're running the shows. And I'm trying to remember exactly when we wanted to reach out to you guys and see if you wanted to host the seminars, just because we figured you guys would. I mean, you run a great podcast and you're able to keep the conversation going, and you ask really good questions, thought-provoking questions that just enhance the conversation and the learning. And that's something we wanted in the seminars. Um, so that was kind of our thought there, was get you guys involved and kind of just help things along, because these guys aren't like professional, public speakers. Most of these guys have never done that in their lives. And I don't know if anyone listening has ever tried to do public speaking or speak in front of a large crowd. It is very nerve wracking. It's very easy to get lost in your thought process and, trying to just get the words out. So having someone facilitate that was a big component of how we wanted things to flow. Because you don't see that at other shows really.
No, you really don't, and that's kind of like the special aspect of it. And I know Rick, you were a huge help on us or with us trying to get the equipment set up, because y'all had all the audio equipment, kind of getting everybody kind of lined up, and it was just fascinating once you got all the speakers kind of loosened up and really in the conversation, like the amazing tidbits that kind of came out of it. And Rick, that's what I was going to kind of pitch over to you is. What was your thought process? Because I know you were there for a lot of the seminars and kind of listened to everything. What were some of your takeaways about just what these guys brought to the table from a skill set and like a whitetail IQ that was kind of transferred over to a lot of the attendees and listeners? Because I think there was a ton of takeaways, but I mean, after kind of seeing some of the different guys and getting the different perspectives, what were some of your bigger takeaways from like the value that the seminars really brought to the actual show itself?
So the value of the seminars to me were very much in the crowd interaction to begin with. Like, I think we've all been to a larger show or something like that. I grew up going to a lot of fishing expos and that kind of stuff. And it's like, you listen to a Bassmaster talk for 30 minutes and there's no crowd participation. It's like, I'm going to tell you what I know. I'm going to get off stage and you're not going to have an opportunity to ask me questions unless you want to come pay some money to get an autograph or something like that. I think the larger aspect of the big takeaways that I took from specifically two different ones, Josh Trollinger and Hunter Hogan, and Chris is probably going to cringe when I say this, kept archery interesting for me, because archery, like I like get like a glazed over look in my eyes when I start hearing about arrow weights and like axis and all that kind of stuff. It was so refreshing to hear it put into a hunting context versus a target archery context that I think we hear a lot on podcasts or you see in tutorials or videos. And they did it in a way. I mean, it helps that Josh killed, the new Kansas record, and he's sitting there telling you how he did it and like all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, that was awesome. But just hearing them, say like, this is how you use a saddle with a platform. This is how you use a saddle with a stand. This is what I think about when I'm shooting a deer at 4 yards versus, 50 yards. I mean, I made the mistake last year. Like Josh Trollinger sitting there talking like, I shot this deer at 4 yards and I used my 50-yard pin. And I'm sitting there thinking back to last year where I shot a deer that was at 9 yards and put my 20 on it and I wounded the deer. And like, it's refreshing to hear that kind of stuff. The Q&A though the panel was the biggest takeaway for me. And when you hear 4 different guys talk about 4 different ways of scent control, 4 different ways of hunting a big deer or selecting a deer or going to a brand new piece of property that none of them have ever been to, and saying, I can get on here and here's what I'm going to look for immediately. And if I'm not seeing it, I'm moving on to the next thing, or when to be mobile and when I'm going to sit and I'm going to be there for a while. Like, those were the larger takeaways from me. The 2 biggest pieces that stick out in my mind when I was sitting there listening, I was just kind of in awe, like, hearing all just the wonderful information that every one of the speakers brought and kind of giving their own spin on how to hunt deer just in general.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on with all that. I mean, it's interesting, and I'll say this: I agree with you about the archery talk, because if I see a podcast episode and they're talking about like archery sets, I'm like, I'm going to skip it. Like, it's so technical. Like, dude, I'll go out there shooting stuff. But like you said, they made it very fascinating. And one thing that was a big takeaway for me, and people can go here on the Q&A recording that y'all dropped on it, is the idea of how important your third axis setup is on your bow for those off-handed shots and everything, and make sure everything's set up. I've never taken it into that much consideration. Of course, Chris, being competitive archer on this podcast right now, he's like, oh, of course, duh, dude. But for the average guy, you're not taking that consideration a whole bunch. And to be honest, it seems like we got some really good archer techs that we work with that are really good. But it seems like some of like a newer archer or bow tech. Like some of those guys, I don't know if they take that into consideration all the time. So it'd be really interesting to kind of see, it seems like a lot of these guys in the competitive archery world, they kind of come in with a skill set. They kind of know how to do a lot of this stuff ahead of time. And the average bow hunter like myself and Andrew, well, Andrew used to be a bow tech, so he can kind of talk about some of this, but you just don't know. Like, you got to go pay somebody or go have somebody that can kind of show you how to do all this stuff. And it was kind of fascinating to talk about, with those guys, how much emphasis they are putting to their setups, having the most dialed in killing system possible. I was gonna say, Chris, what was there any takeaways that you kind of heard from whether it was the Q&A or whether it was any of the other seminars that was just kind of fascinating after getting to sit down and listen to some successful Southern hunters?
So before I dive into that, and Andrew, don't kill me, you know how we get advice from people on the internet, and the first thing you do is you go and look and see what deer they have in their profile and all that to kind of figure out, like, hey, is this dude full of it? Or, are there credentials that say, hey, I might know what I'm talking about? If you get archery advice from somebody, head on over to the ASA, IBO, whatever they shoot, and make sure they're putting up good scores. Otherwise, like, there's a lot, I won't say this about every bow tech, but the majority of bow techs that I've met couldn't shoot a bow to save their life in competition. So, and I don't know what it is, if it's just their lack of attention to detail or what, but the whole reason we had that conversation there, or they did, is because I told Josh, I was like, hey, listen, there's one thing that is very important to me. I think the axis adjustments are the most overlooked thing when setting up a bow for a bow hunter. And you got all these guys who get what we call bubbled, where they're not even level to start with. And then once you get all that set up, you have to make sure everything is level when you make that shot. Otherwise, when you introduce a steep angle up or down, you can be off by inches from a fairly short yardage, 25 yards or so. And then you get out there to 35, 40 yards. That could be the difference from hitting a deer right behind the shoulder in the crease and the V to hitting it in the ass. It's crazy. So, honestly, I'm trying to think here. I didn't really have a really big takeaway, because I've thought about everything that everyone was going to talk about and everything all year. So I was sitting there kind of where you were, like, business wise. Like, I was trying to film and do everything, but the best, I don't want to say the best, but for me, I love seeing people learn things that they don't really, we all get so caught up in this deer thing, and you see some, we won't mention names, but you see some really good hunters miss and wound deer a lot. So having that education on the archery side of things, to me, is just as important as learning how to play thermals or, axis, or you name it. But that was my favorite part, hands down, because you're talking about two guys who are extremely accomplished. And I know they're technically not Southern gentlemen. They're from Missouri, but those dudes, when I looked for somebody to invite, I just couldn't think of anybody with better credentials, both on the deer hunting public land side and the archery side. And I said, man, I got to bite the bullet. I wanted everybody to be from the South, but these guys need to be here. And I felt like they absolutely knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Because at first, when he told me that they were going to be there, and Hunter Hogan's been on the podcast, Josh Trollinger hasn't been on the podcast yet, but it's coming. His day's coming. He knows it. We've talked about
His
it.
day's coming.
But it's you talk about a damn killer, dude. It's unbelievable. But when you first had mentioned they're coming, I'm like, okay, well, they're Southerners, and you kind of mentioned what they were going to talk about, and I've never heard them talk, at any kind of high level of like the archery equipment. I knew they were both competition archers, but dude, it was fascinating because you got two killers. It's not like they're not just competition archers. They're competition archers that are absolute killers and killing big bucks in public land as well. So you mesh that together, it was like so much information that was just so valuable that was just kind of given out. I'm like, okay, this is fascinating, dude. Like again, kind of like Rick said, I wasn't glazed over at all, in that conversation. It was I was very much fully engaged. It was just fascinating again, especially when they were talking about the whole idea of the shot angles out of saddles and how to stabilize yourself in the whole 9 yards. It was great. And also one thing I really appreciated was you had two guys up there with completely different frames. They're both super tall dudes, but you got Josh. Or you got Hunter Hogan, who's the beanpole, and you got Josh, who looks like a defensive end. And you get these two different guys, and they're kind of showing how they stabilize themselves in the saddle in different positions and different shot angles, which I appreciated, because it's one thing if you see Hunter Hogan or again like this a lankier guy up there, kind of how they're positioning in a saddle versus like a bigger dude, like a more kind of a husky guy, able to do the same shots and kind of show again just the control he could have in different positions, which to me was extremely relatable with the whole audience can see both of those positions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're a rarity too, because when I competed, I met a lot of people, and you friend everybody on Facebook and Insta and all that. You kind of follow everybody, and it's just like going to the expo, but 7 times a year. You see everybody each month, and then you don't see everybody for a few months. So you follow along on the internet during deer season, and I got to be honest. A lot of people who do really well in the target side, they don't really perform in the woods. They're not, that ain't their thing. You can tell they're more focused on targets, which, to each their own. But for me, it's just weird to me, because I got into targets to just be a better deer hunter. And so when you meet a couple of guys like that, those don't come around super often, where they're high-level archers, high-level public land deer hunters, and they can talk to people. They're just very talented, especially freaking Hunter, dude. What is he, like 17? I mean, that kid, he's young as hell. And I think I'll just go kill 1,000 inches on public land this year with 6 deer.
You guys need to have a deep dive moon session with Hunter Hogan. We had a pretty good conversation. It was him and Michael Perry in the room and Josh Trollinger, and we were talking about the moon and stuff. This was after the expo. It was awesome.
Yeah, and Jeremy too. Getting all those guys together in a room to talk the moon phase would be very interesting. Which a bunch of people probably just rolled their eyes at that. But man, I'm telling you, it's interesting. Hey, that's one thing, by the way, about having all these guys in one room together. Because I'm not really a moon phase guy. I don't know if there's anything to the moon or not. But what I do know is that when you had that panel there of all these guys who are much more successful than me and pretty much everybody else that I know, they all believe it and they all plan their hunts around it, and it's a big factor for them. So, I mean, I don't know. That makes me think that maybe there is something to it. I don't know if I'll ever pay attention to it, because I don't know. I'm not that into the moon. But
here comes 100 hate email.
But it's an interesting subject. It gets people fired up.
I can hear him typing right now.
It's an interesting subject.
I think if you're hunting a deer in his bed, getting that 125 and in, 100 and in, I don't think the moon will ever make a difference. And it's funny because I've had a few conversations with Hunter and a few others on Facebook and stuff, and they feel really strongly about that moon. But when we had this conversation, it was everything that I thought it would be, which was really refreshing to me. because they're not bed hunting deer because they're in flatter terrain more often than not. So they're doing what I call private land hunting whitetails and waiting for them to daylight, and they're trying to up their odds. And I 100% believe, like, if you're kind of out on that fringe, I really do like that. For us, from what we've seen, that week leading up to the full moon and then the 7 days after, it's, well, 6 days after and the full moon, it's pretty crazy how that correlates to the encounters you have on your cams. But again, I like to take that out of the equation. So didn't mean to rabbit hole on you. Let's continue.
Yeah. So another interesting thing about the expo was just the abundance of companies that are there that people were able to, again, try before they buy. Again, you don't have a ton of opportunities to do this. Some of these companies will go to different, deer shows across the country. Like, again, we got the World Deer Expo coming up here in about a week. There'll be a couple companies, mobile hunting companies there always are. But out of, 1,500 booths, it would be 5 or 6 mobile hunting companies, and everything else is anything under the imagination. Insurance companies, guided trips, Africa trips. All kinds of knickknacks.
Shoe soles.
Yeah, jewelry cleaner stuff, like just all kinds of things. This is a waste of time. Versus like at a show like this where you have all these different companies under like one roof that people can go and see. And also see the interaction between some of these companies. Like after talking, I didn't get to meet a lot of people. Like I was trying to meet Aaron what Sadie's Fatties Satterfield.
Oh, Aaron Satterfield, yeah.
Satterfield?
I wanted to meet him so bad, dude. I never got a chance to go over to his booth because we were just like busy with everything. And there was a bunch of other guys I wanted to see at the show, which thankfully a lot of those guys are going to be all those companies are going to be going to the Northern show, which we'll talk about in a moment because I'll be going to the Northern show too, which I'm super excited about. But just the interaction between all these different companies and be able to try all these different products before you buy, because the problem is in the mobile hunting space, if anybody's listening to the podcast, and a lot of our listeners are probably classify themselves as mobile hunters, they're not necessarily going to a ladder stand, they're not necessarily going to a shooting house or a blind or something like that. They're probably have a tree stand, a climber, lock on, or a saddle that they're using majority of their time when they're hunting around. And with that, a lot of these companies, you don't ever get a chance to see it for yourself in person before you have to buy it. So a lot of times you're buying something, you bring it home, you don't like it, and then you have to go to resell it because you can't really send it back to them after you used it. And it's just kind of a cluster versus like here you could try all these different companies' products at the show, get a mess around with it, and be like, okay, this is the perfect stand for me. This is the perfect saddle. These are the perfect climbing sticks, whatever. And you can make that decision at one place instead of having to order it online and hope and pray that it's exactly what you were hoping for when you get it. So
I had 3 or 4 people, or probably more than that actually, that came up to me when I was talking to listeners. They're like, "Hey, which saddle do you think I should try?" I'm like, literally all of them. Like, go to every single one and try all of them because you're not going to get this chance again. Like until next year at the next Mobile Hunters Expo, but like there's just not gonna be an opportunity where you have like almost all the saddle companies, all the big saddle companies in one place to go try them, or all these lightweight lock-ons, because they're all direct to consumer, exactly like you're saying. And outside of, if you just end up getting connected with people in your area who might have one or two, it's like, oh, so and so that lives in the next town over, he's got a cruiser, and this guy that lives 45 minutes away, he's got a Latitude, and you can do it that way. But it's not. It's like, dude, you got like 18 options here. Like, go check them all out.
Yeah.
So, anyways, sorry, I just totally cut you off.
No, but that's what I was trying to get at. Like, to me, that's such a huge advantage. So not only are you coming to the show and you get to speak to these different, this seminar guests and the speakers and learn from them. Also, you get to learn from other extremely successful people that are at the show. I mean, we had how many guests did we have at the show that weren't even like part of the show? They just came to attend. I mean, it was like probably,
over 10.
Yeah, over 10 at least. That at the show, they were all killers from the Southeast that came to the show just to attend the show.
Yeah,
they weren't even participating in the show.
We drug old Scott up there. He was in the booth with us the whole
Scott
time.
Seals. Yeah, and
we put him to work.
Yeah, and it's like, so not only do you get to talk to other successful guys that are on the floor just walking around that you potentially could run into, but also, again, this is the advantage of being able to see and try all this different equipment at one place. And like, dude, guys, that Ingwe stand is about as ridiculous as you could come, as in lightweight, sub 5 pounds, plenty big enough. My freaking, fat butt get up there, and I was like, dude, is it flexing any more than any other machine stand I've ever stood on before? I'm like, this is ridiculous how lightweight this thing is. And like seeing all these different new products that are coming out at this one show, it's like ATA, but for mobile hunters that actually the consumer can go to and actually try before you buy. Like, it's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and you're dealing directly with the company themselves. Like, you're dealing with the guys who machine these things, or it's their vision. Like, that's one of the coolest parts about it. Or like, I mean, the guys from Elevate, the Stubbs brothers, like they're there, and then you're talking to them, and they just want you to like experience everything. They'll say, go try this, go try that. Like, it's such a cool thing to be able to interact with the guys whose vision this is to make, mobile hunting this far larger community than what it's ever been before.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, another thing that's really interesting about the dynamic of the show, every company that's involved with the Mobile Hunter Expo is they're so confident in the quality and the gear that they're providing. They don't mind you go and try something else because they all feel like you're going to come back and enjoy my product, which I really like. Nobody's there thinking like, oh, you only got to try my product, don't try anything else. Everybody's like, no, go try everything else and then come back to me and let me know your thoughts. And it's like they're all confident in what they're producing, and they're all making, high quality equipment. And that's a cool another dynamic because you're able to talk to some of the owners, talk to people that work for these different companies, get some real world understanding of the applications of products. And again, someone that actually develop the product, use the product, and can really explain the application of how you use this saddle, tree stand, climbing sticks, whatever, at one show. And again, you're not having to take somebody on the internet's advice that you have no idea whether they're credible or not, which is huge.
Yeah, that's huge. And also, just to kind of get on a little soapbox about it too, like you go talk to those guys, and like you said, you get to talk to the owner, and these guys are all, to me, it's just like everybody there is like the American dream, man. Everybody there took a chance and started a business and put their money where their mouth was, and risked stuff, and they're traveling however many hours to get to this expo, and they're talking to their consumers, and they're like doing it, man. They're starting their own business, and they're trying to build it, and you get to go and talk to those people face to face, and you get to give them feedback, just like what Jacob was talking about. A lot of those guys are like, well, what didn't you like about it? Yeah, and they're looking for that. They're looking to, build that product, and there's like a very personal connection to that brand. So, like, to me, that part's also super valuable because you're not dealing with like a giant corporation or a conglomerate, where this parent brand owns like these 9 companies or whatever, and they're all kind of on the same team, and it's like this corporate glob, and you can't talk to anybody. Like, Jacob knows what I'm talking about. We deal with that stuff all the time.
Well, speak about that. I just found out because a listener hit me up. I won't mention the brand, but one of those huge conglomerate companies is using one of our videos for marketing material on Amazon for their product, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So very, very, very interesting.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
And also,
and that marketing director, Jacob, angered that
does
man.
not like me. Like, I know the guy. Yeah, he does not like me, which is funny enough they'd use the video, but it is what it is. So won't mention any names, but if you go,
love the hunting industry.
It's funny. Oh yeah, man, it's funny you guys bring up companies sending you to other companies to try things and having confidence, but also I think probably 90+% of those guys are so freaking analytical. They want to solve a problem. Like, that's literally the reason why their company exists. They were just trying to solve a problem, and then they just kept going on down the line, and they always want to know, kind of like you said, they want feedback and want to make things better. And you see stuff, I call these expo babies. You see ideas born at that show, and it is the coolest thing. I'm telling you right now, the best damn camera arm that has ever existed in life is going to hit the market in a couple of weeks. And I just like twiddled my thumbs for days in the shower after. I was like, what? How do you come up with that? So there's just so many little things, little collaborations between companies, and you see people, that film and do podcasts or whatever, and they come to that show and they pick up a sponsorship or or whatever. And it's just so cool. And you'll see that with the film festival. And man, I wanted a film festival so we could all sit down and drink beer and watch deer get shot. Like, never once was I like, oh yeah, somebody could really benefit because of this. And now I look at it and I'm like, man, this is so cool. It's just a good thing, I guess.
It's kind of, sorry, Jacob, do you want to go?
No, I'll let you roll with it.
Okay. No, it's kind of, it's really humbling to see just our idea like come to fruition, right? Because we have this vision of how we want the environment to work, how we want the shows to work, and really how we want them to develop. And it's really just quite humbling just watching year from year kind of watch it become what it's becoming. There's really no other, I'll just say it, there's no other show that has the same environment that our show does. Like, and that's what we wanted. Like, these companies are not there to bash other companies. A lot of them will collaborate with one another. A lot of them will refer to each other, which is pretty awesome. I feel like you don't get to see or hear that quite often. It's back to your comment earlier, Jacob, about new products dropping. Like, our shows are there's the ATA where you get all the new products, and then there's the Mobile Hunters Expo, where I don't think there's any other show that has as much new products dropping as what's dropping at ours. I mean, there was a ton of new stuff that dropped at our Southern show, and then there's a bunch more new products that'll be dropped at the Northern show.
Yep.
And it's awesome to see. And then there's, like you said earlier, there's companies that are seeking feedback on the spot, and they're trying to problem solve. I don't know if you got a chance to talk to the Hunt 3D guys, but they're local to us. They brought their 3D printer to the expo, and people were giving them just some ideas for their camera arm, and they were 3D printing stuff on the spot to make improvements to the arm for individuals, and that was really, really cool to see. But yeah, I can't speak more to the environment. There's nothing else like it out there, and it's, like I said, it's just humbling to watch it grow.
Yeah, and speaking about the environment, speaking about the environment, speaking about the opportunity here, we've got to talk about the Northern show. So if people miss the Southern show, okay, then you're like, dude, I screwed up, screwed the pooch, should have gone after kind of seeing everything and hearing about it. There's one more show left for this year, which is the Northern Show in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Chris, talk to us a little bit about this show. I want you to talk to me a little bit like the size of the venue. I want you to talk to me about some of the guest speakers, especially notable guest speakers that maybe some of our audience would know, and then what people should expect at that show when it comes to like the overall environment and things that y'all have learned from the Southern show that you're kind of changing for the Northern show.
So right out the gate, we have changed, as I said before, to 3 days instead of 2. So Friday, we're going to start off at 3 p.m. and go to 8 p.m. So those that are, just getting off of work can come by and not just see, a half hour or an hour. They can come hang out for hours on end. And then we're going to open up at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning and roll till 4. And directly after that is the film festival from 4 to 6, which is going to be a banger. And then on Sunday, we're going to open up the expo at 9 a.m. and roll till 3. And our guest speakers, similar to the Southern show, this is a show that's tailored to Northern hunters. And I like to think of it as pretty Michigan strong as far as the companies go. Of course, you really don't have a choice in the matter because probably like 65% of the damn companies are from Michigan anyway. So with that said, guest speakers, a lot of us have heard of Dan Infalt. He and Josh Tolker will be there speaking. And then we have a guy that we've probably all watched on YouTube to solve one or more problems in hunting, and a guy who I believe is really probably the most responsible for the mobile hunting boom is Garrett Prawl, the DIY sportsman. That guy has done so many cool things for mobile hunting, the self filmer, archery, you name it. He's so intelligent and analytical, and I'm super excited. He's going to be giving a master class on e-scouting, so that's going to be really slick. We've got Sam Ubble from Chase Nation. I think he filmed for Whitetail Adrenaline, I believe. Um, he is going to talk about access, and he's a big water access guy. So I'm pretty excited to hear him speak. And then we've got the Michigan native from the UP, Dieter Calkin. He's going to be talking about scent and how it applies. He's a canine handler, so this dude, I've got my hopes up pretty high for these guys. So I'm hoping we're actually going to try to hire a couple more staff members just so me and Josh can watch. I'm sick of working. I came here to have fun. So I think that it's going to be a really good time. There's going to be a lot of knowledge drop. We're going to do a Q&A on Friday evening as well. We're still structuring that a little bit, but man, the environment is just going to be sick. Going to be it's going to be northern heavy, of course. So we're really looking forward to it. We've got a gigantic mega venue. So to give you guys, kind of a 10,000 foot view or whatever, a view along the timeline. Last year we had like 8,000 or 9,000 square feet, and we had, I don't know, like 37 companies. I think we had 45 or 46 in Chattanooga, and we'll probably be over 50 in Kalamazoo. In Chattanooga, we had 36,000 square feet. We have 44,000 square feet in Kalamazoo. So we've got a lot of room, and we've got a great venue with phenomenal parking. There's camping. It's a part of a state park, so there's literally camping super close to the building. From what I talked to the lady, I didn't realize this. Our show manager told us they have e-bike trails. So kind of wish I would have known that. We might have to talk to Dieter and have him bring some more bikes, or Michigan food plot. Send them out there on the bike trail. If you wreck the bike, though, you're fired right before you hit the ground. Your ticket is invalid right before you hit the ground. No, it's going to be a great time. We're going to have a lot. We're going to have, of course, our buddy Jacob here involved as much as we can up north, and then we're going to have some guys involved from some of the northern podcasts. We've got a lot of podcasts and YouTube channels coming to do media like they did in the South. If anybody is listening and you're coming to the show and you'd like a media pass, please email us at fueledbytheoutdoors@gmail.com, and we will get you a media pass. We just want everybody involved to be able to grow. And when you come to this show, you're going to see it. It's I don't know if it was Rick or Josh who said it first. I think it was Rick, but I don't want to give credit and get yelled at later. But rising tides raise all ships. When you come and see this environment, we're obviously trying to get you to come there anyways, right? But at the end of the day, when people come here, they immediately understand exactly what they've heard, which is the environment is truly unlike anything else that you can find at any show, workshop, you name it. It is very unbiased. We support all the companies. All the companies support each other, and nobody's coming there to bash anybody. There's not drama. It's just an amazing environment where we're all there to grow and learn as whitetail deer hunters.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that, we've done a lot of podcasts about hunting with a buddy, wolf packing, like when we've had Wes Moe on a bunch of times, we talked about that. And we get a lot of listener questions where they're like, how do I go about finding a hunting buddy? How do I go about finding someone who is basically into the same kind of hunting that we're into? Because I make the analogy, like you go to the expo and it's not like your uncle or whatever at Thanksgiving who, he goes out to the hunting club, he hunts a little bit, and you can talk about hunting with him, but he's not. If you're listening to this podcast, he's probably not hunting like you. Like he's probably not that into it. Everyone thinks you're a little bit off your rocker. Well, that's how everybody at the Mobile Hunters Expo is. We're all a little bit off our rockers. But if you want to know how to find someone who is going to be a good hunting partner for you, there is no better place to do it, in my opinion, because it's just like you said, it's a room full of people who are all just like very interested in what we're doing. And I had several people ask me, but leading up to the expo, that question. I'm like, go to this expo, dude. This is where you go network, you go rub shoulders with some people, and you just go talk to other like-minded hunters. There's probably a lot of people there in Facebook groups who you've talked to a whole bunch of times in the past, in comment sections or on Facebook Messenger or on Instagram or whatever, who are like-minded, and now you can go meet them in person, and it's at events like that where a lot of new friendships start as well, and you're going to find some folks that you're going to want to go hunting with. And that's pretty much, we didn't meet at an expo, but me and Jacob, that's how we met, dude. It was in like a Facebook group that was geared towards hunting a certain WMA that we both hunted. And that's how me and Jacob met. And then, a year or two later, we're like, hey, you want to go to Wyoming? And then we went to Wyoming and hunted deer, and then we started a podcast. So like plug yourself into these communities. If you want that community and you want to go out there and you want to meet people and you want to get connected, you got to plug yourself into communities like this. So if that's something that you desire, go to the show, man. Get you a plane ticket, fly up to Kalamazoo. Go to the Southern show next year, or one of the other ones that y'all might do. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on the subject, but I think that's something that a lot of people would probably find really helpful, is going to something like this to, again, just get plugged in with that community.
Yeah, I feel that in my soul a little bit too. The look you get from people. You carry all your stuff out there and then put it up and then tear it down and pack it out with the deer. Why?
Jacob was talking to his brother about that today, weren't you? Your brother was like, why would you hike in to go hunt or something like that?
Yeah, because we killed 2 bucks, almost 2.5 miles in last year. And one of my brothers is like, dude, I would never do that. I'm like, yeah, clearly you don't ever hunt with me, so yeah, you don't have to worry about it. But no, so true. Hey, real quick, Rick, talk to me about the dates for the Northern Show. We haven't mentioned that quite yet. Talk about the dates. Talk about the venue. What's the name of the venue if people want to go? And also where maybe people can find more information on the Northern Show, potentially get tickets, pre-sale tickets, or find out any other information about the venue or anything else they should know.
So all information that we've got is at the mobilehuntersexpo.com, and it's got all the information, including well, it doesn't have vendor lists yet or anything along those lines, but it's at I want to make sure I'm telling everybody right. It's at the Kalamazoo County Expo Center in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and the dates are July 28th, 29th, and 30th. Those are the 3 days. And on the 28th, like Chris said, it's from 3 to 8. The 29th, it's from 8 to 4 with the Latitude Film Festival directly following. And then on Sunday, July 30th, it's from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And like it's going to be 3 days of amazing, interaction with hunting companies, hunters. I can't say this enough, because as somebody who and Chris will can tell you this, he's known me the longest out of anybody on here, as somebody who was very much set in my ways of, this is how you're going to go kill a deer. It is very nice to go and learn new things from companies or see things that you want to try. or just to get out of your comfort zone. Even like this is the perfect spot to go and just learn more about, I mean, a little bit about yourself as a hunter, and like, ask yourself, why am I uncomfortable with sitting in a small stand versus a ladder stand? Is it because I'm not doing the right things? I can tell you for damn sure for a real long time, it's because I didn't want to walk that far. And now I think I told Chris the other day, I'm hiking on a stair climber anytime I can, or walking around with, weighted pack, trying to get ready to be able to pack deer out and that kind of stuff versus dragging them out. So come to Kalamazoo if you want to learn about yourself as a hunter and you want to learn just in general. That's the biggest piece that I can say about it. And go to the mobilehuntersexpo.com.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'm going to be there as well. So if any listeners want to come and hang out, feel free. Find me at the show. Should be super exciting. Again, after going to the Southern show and knowing the Northern show is going to be even bigger, it's got me that much more excited because the Southern show was a madhouse. I can't imagine what the Northern show is going to be like. So, we had listeners drive down from Northern Indiana to the Southern show to come say hi and see some of the guest speakers, which I was kind of blown away with. So if any of our listeners, within 5-6 hours of Kalamazoo, I would highly recommend for driving up. I know we got a lot of listeners in that area. Within 5-6 hours of that of Kalamazoo, so it's worth the drive. It's worth making it a weekend trip. Bring the family. That's another cool thing about the show is it really is kind of family friendly, especially if you have some kids that are like they're 10, 12, 15 years old. That are kind of wanting to hunt with you and learn as well. This is a great show to come to and maybe get them as excited as maybe you are of talking to other extremely successful hunters and kind of showing that there's different levels to this. There's different levels from just being the guy that you just go sit in a ladder stand out behind your house 20 acres and you kill deer every year, to actually trying to get out there and cover some ground and even be more successful and be more of a versatile whitetail hunter. This is an unbelievable show to go to, and I highly recommend guys doing that. But before we get off this topic, do y'all have anything else y'all want to mention about the Northern show or anything else in detail? Josh, you got anything?
Yeah, I'd like to hit on the film festival real quick, if I may. So like Chris and Rick said, the film festival is going to start at 4 p.m. on Saturday and then go to 6 p.m. It's right after the show. If you have a ticket to the show, you automatically get entrance into the film festival, so it doesn't cost anything extra. There's going to be plenty of room for everyone. Anyone that wants to go is more than welcome to attend the film festival. But if Jacob, you saw last year's film festival, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So if you recall, that was our first take at a film festival. This year, it is going to be much larger, and the quality is going to be way higher than last year. So the goal of this is this is going to be the whitetail film festival. Period. That is where this film festival is going to go. The quality is going to be really high. We have the Latitude crew. I mean, they have really good editors and guys on their team that are kind of doing everything as far as putting it together, making sure it's high quality. I don't know if any of the listeners know Aaron Blicey from the Fall Podcast, but he's been producing films for 10 years. I know he'll have a hand in it as far as putting things together and just making sure the quality is there. But the people that are entering films, some of these guys no one has probably ever heard of, but they are some serious filmographers. I mean, the quality hunts that they're producing are nuts. I think you guys, I think Seth Johnson, is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Texas, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I think he
Skinny
might
guy.
be something, and then I mean he's got some high quality stuff that he puts out. But it's guys like that you never heard of, but are really good, and you'll be able to go there and then just enjoy, like Chris said, just watching deer get shot with a bunch of like-minded people. And then there will be door prizes. There's going to be giveaways at the film fest, kind of in between films. The Latitude guys will be giving stuff to the crowd and different things like that. So it'll be a really cool environment.
One other thing, and Rick, maybe you can hit on this real quick. Talk to us about the attendee survey for anyone that attended the Southern show, is any of this, is the survey still open? Because I know y'all are going to do some giveaway prizes for some of that stuff. Is some of that still open? And if so, maybe talk about the importance for people to go and fill out that survey from the attendees that actually came to that Southern show.
So, I think Josh can confirm the survey is still open because we're using it for the Northern show as well. So he's shaking his head yes. So that's a good thing. So the the survey is still open, and the importance of it is it's just a consumer survey of you going to the show and telling us what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want to see. But the cool part about it is that when all is said and done with, and we're done with the Northern show and we're done with the Southern show, we're drawing for a grand prize, and it's totals over $1,500 worth of gear, gear that you're going to see at the show. So it's a pretty sweet prize pack, and all you have to do is tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, and what you saw that was kind of cool, or that you would refer to somebody else, or anything along those lines. We're trying to learn, like I told you earlier. We're trying to learn everything we can in terms of how to make this a better place, not only for the mobile hunter, but for families as well. We want you to bring your families to this kind of stuff to be able to continue a heritage that we've all, grown to love and want to just see continue to bloom.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
That'll be a lot more than $1,500. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it's going to be more like $3,000 or $4,000.
Oh, well, crap. That's a hell of a lot more than what I thought it
There's
was.
going to be a new bow with a case, freaking arrows, Zamberlan boots, Maven binoculars. Like, there's all kinds of gear tossed in there. Bowstrings, you name it.
Yeah, you'll have pretty much a full setup to do whatever you need. And just to provide a little bit more details on the consumer survey, so it's not posted anywhere on our website or social media. That's on purpose right now, because a lot of the questions pertain to how your experience was at the show. So when you come to the Northern show and you check in, enjoy the show, do your thing, but at the end, stop by the expo booth / Fueled by the Outdoors booth. We'll have a map of where everything is. It'll be currently right now, is if you walk in the main entrance, it'll be kind of to the far right in the first aisle, towards the front of the expo. But the survey will be there. Stop by, check out the booth. It'll be a QR code. It'll take just a few minutes to fill out. It'll just ask questions pertaining to your experience at the show, and then you're automatically entered in for that grand prize. But it gives us a lot of good feedback, and that the feedback from the Southern show that we got from the consumer surveys were in part what resulted in us changing the times for the Northern show. Like, we take the feedback pretty serious. We try and implement it really quick. It was a mix of that and then the feedback we got from our vendors. So we really appreciate anyone that fills it out.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's perfect. Well, Andrew,
I want to give a shout out to Seth Johnson, by the way. His YouTube channel is called The Skinny Pine Hunting Co. So y'all can go look that up. He does put out some really good stuff. We're hoping to have a little bit of you might hear him on the podcast later this year, hopefully, if things work out. But yeah, it's called the Skinny Pine Hunting Co. I got to meet him at the expo. He's really good dude. Y'all ready for some Q&A?
Yeah, so real quick,
little Q&A session.
Yep. So we've been adding Q&As to the end of the outros for the last couple of weeks now. So since you guys are on here, both Chris, Josh, and Rick, we're gonna get y'all's feedback on some of these Q&As as well. So
yeah, we got a good one.
All right,
we got a good one. All right, this one is from Mason Brook. He said, "Last year, I killed the biggest deer of my life, 132 and 6/8 inch, 4.5-year-old. Listener success story waiting to be posted. We hunt a 2,000 acre clear cut that the majority was cut about 5 or 6 years ago, so it's nice and thick and has a couple of nice terrain features such as SMZs, swamps, etc. He's in central Georgia, so there's no big terrain features. This year, it got sprayed by the timber company, and everything is dying off pretty quickly. How should I tackle this scenario with feed? I'd assume that most browse will die off, and feeders and food plots will be the go-to this year without any other food source." All right. So this is a very southern problem. So
Oh my God.
all you Ohio
How the hell
folks.
will they spray it?
Oh, that's what they do, man. That they're growing. It's a tree farm, bro. All right, Jacob. Let's start with you. Well,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, so in this situation, for people that never ran into this, what the timber company's doing, they probably didn't plant it back in pines, so they let it grow up, and then instead of coming through and burning it, because a lot of these timber companies don't use fire anymore for the liability aspect, they come through and use herbicide, they kill everything off, and then they go through and replant pines. So that makes it really tough. I'll be honest, I've never hunted one of those areas like that before, where they'd come through and sprayed super heavily on like the one property that I could only hunt. So when it comes to food sources, my thought process would go looking at those SMZs, the places they didn't spray, and hope you can find and walk them all and see if you can find any specific oaks that could be potentially be dropping, throughout the season. That would be one of the biggest things. Or, if even if they sprayed it, depending on when they sprayed it, based off when he's sending this information, there still could be some green growth happening in September before any frost happens. So there's still potential to find some kind of browse in that. But the thing is, now listen, I'm a rifle hunter, guys. Listen, opposite of Chris, again, I bow hunt my way into gun season. So when it comes to that, and they said they sprayed it, there's no way they sprayed everything perfectly, so there's going to be little thick pockets. That gets me, I get drooling as a rifle hunter thinking about that, because I'll be one-sticking. I'm about to learn how to one-stick this year, guys, so it's going to be a cluster to figure this out. But try to climb as high as I can, overlooking some of those little thick spots, and really saving that opportunity potentially for gun season, if he likes to gun hunt, and even if they can gun hunt. It might be a bow-only property, but he didn't say.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I'd look at the SMZs in the swamps. I'd look at the neighbors' properties and look at the terrain features that you're going to be dealing with. But when it comes to like feeding, like he mentioned feeding specifically, like putting out corn, food plots, and whatnot. That's just not something that I don't think either of us really have much experience with. But the people that I know down here who do that kind of thing, I would almost use that as a way to just kind of get pictures of deer and maybe influence where the deer are going to be. But maybe not put out corn piles just to hunt over.
Well, it gives me a question. So, Chris, I want you to maybe talk about this, and Rick, you can maybe follow up as well. Ohio's a baiting state, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So with Ohio being a baiting state, and it's pretty common in private land, I know, Chris, you have some private land. You have a little bit of experience on some of that private land dealing with like bait stations. What's been your success and thoughts on hunting bait stations when all your neighbors are doing the exact same thing? How does that affect the deer movement and like patternability when everybody else, all your neighbors, if they're deer hunting, they probably have corn or some kind of feed out?
You ever played the lottery before? It's pretty much that for me. You really have to be close to where a deer is bedded. All of my success that I've had has either correlated directly. So when I've had a good buck bedded close, I can kill him off bait. Otherwise, it's really just a game that my dear friend Josh plays, where you basically concentrate the does, and then you get those deer to come in there at the end of October and in the first week of November, and they're scent checking and just coming in. And oftentimes they'll stop in for a snack, but the majority of the time you don't kill them over the bait. You end up getting your shot where they're scent checking or something like that. I have killed one mature buck over bait in Ohio, and that was on a 5-acre parcel that had about 1.5 to 2 acres of woods. You're just not going to kill a mature buck over bait more often than not on a regular man's parcel. Essentially, what I mean by that is if you don't have a large lease, you really aren't going to find a lot of these mature bucks just walking around in daylight eating corn, for you to just freely harvest them on, your blue collar parcels. If you have large leases where you have the vast majority of the control when it comes to pressure and everything, then sure. There's some guys we know that will condition deer from the time that they're a fawn and they feel completely safe eating at those corn piles, I think that's a great way to kill big deer every year. But when you can't go manipulate the land, when you have other people on all the parcels around you bumping the deer out of their beds and doing everything you don't want done, that affects it tremendously. So I actually made the switch from hunting private land to hunting public land. I haven't baited in a while. And I actually had like a 180-inch deer and a 150-inch deer on a parcel, and I never even hunted them because I knew where a bunch of nice 130 and 140-inch deer were that I could kill opening day. That bird in the hand.
Yep.
Yeah. That really relates to like what a lot of people down here deal with, I feel like. And that's one way I was going with that statement earlier was when it comes to like putting out corn or whatever, or even small food plots to kill big deer, I really don't know a lot of people that actually are consistently successful doing that down here. I know guys that shoot does and small bucks on like, corn piles or whatever all the time. But if we're talking about like bigger mature bucks, it just doesn't happen very much. And maybe the better solution for this guy, for Mason, if he's wanting to do something, would be maybe invest in some food plots, around in strategic locations around the property to kind of hold does like you were talking about, Chris, and hopefully get some more doe traffic on the area and just hold them on with some food and then catch bucks scent checking those features later in the year when the rut rolls around, rather than maybe necessarily trying to kill a buck on that actual feature.
Yeah. And I would say that if you intend to feed, I would feed heavy with large loads of cobbed corn so that it's more robust and doesn't mold. And I sound like some kind of baiting pro, but I've been watching Zach Kaiser. He uses cobbed corn, so it lasts a lot longer. They can't just walk up and eat it. The coons and everything else have a tougher time. They can't just come up and just gorge themselves. So it lasts longer. It's more robust, and you don't have to be going in there. And to be honest, I don't mean to sound like a little carrot tugger here, but the whole reason that I quit baiting literally was because of that damn podcast episode you guys did with Tom Brownlee.
Yep.
The truth about scent. I said, well, there it is. Like, I knew they could smell me, but I didn't really respect it. And then after hearing that guy talk, I'm like, I'm literally wasting all my time and money throwing these stupid corn piles out. And I was thinking the other day, I used to run cams all over Southern Ohio with bait. I would probably have 2,000 or 3,000 pounds of bait out on, a combined, 4 or 5 different places, split up. And that was all hauled on my back. So I'm hauling 300, 400, 500 pounds of corn in a marine issued Ilby pack. And it's taken me days just to get corn to places. And then it's there for 2 weeks. And then I got to go back out and put more corn out. I got to spend all that money. Hell, corn is damn near double in price, if not double in price from what it was a few years ago. And then when you look at all the things you got to do with your cameras and everything, and all the damage that I think you do, to me, it's not worth it. If you've got a huge parcel and a gator and you can run out there and never touch the ground and dump that bed and leave and run a cell cam, cool, good for you. You're probably going to find consistent success. If you can't do that, like we know a guy who literally feeds at night. He conditions the hell out of these deer like a mad scientist. He'll take his quad out at night and drop the corn and then leave. It's crazy. So that's my 2 cents.
Nice. What about Rick? What do you have on this?
So, like Chris, I've only ever seen one buck killed over going to corn, and that was 2 years ago on a piece of property that I hunt with my dad. And it's not the same thing, but I want to say that it was logged probably 3 years ago. All the oaks were cut out of it. So every feed tree was cut away from that. Now, what that ultimately did, they didn't go in and spray it. It went in and made an awesome bedding area for all the big bucks in that area. And like we still put corn out on it. We do it for an inventory purpose of trying to see what kind of bucks are there. I have never seen. I take that back. I had one deer, the biggest buck that I've ever had on hoof in front of me in Ohio. And I shot and missed him because he had ate at a corn pile and he was walking away from it. But it was like he stopped, smelled it, took a bite, kept moving. For the person who's had everything sprayed, I would start looking for browse that they didn't get. Like that would be my first thought of it. You can dump corn and try to concentrate does for the rut. That's what so Josh and I live in Kentucky. Chris lives in Ohio. So our a lot of the hunting in Kentucky is done with rifles over corn. It's just the way that it is. Whether it's out of a shooting house, a blind, a mobile stand, what have you. And every once in a while you'll see a really, really great deer shot going to a corn pile. It's very, very few and far between. And it's great if you got private property where you can do that at. You can't do that on public. And realistically, they just changed the law up here. I think it was last month or the month before last, where you can't even start baiting you can't even do any type of feeding that includes mineral or whatever from until July 31st. And as soon as season's over with, you're not allowed to do it anymore. So it really eliminates a lot of what some people have traditionally used here, where you bait for long periods of time and try to, condition deer. So, I mean, you can try corn to concentrate does for the rut and hope, a big one is you catch them chasing a doe being dumb. But I would start by walking the area, finding patches that are, still have reasonable browse, or find a feed tree that they might have missed, or find something that's going to be growing during that time of year that, maybe gets a little bit overlooked.
Absolutely. Josh, what are your thoughts?
So I'm going to agree with Chris and Rick. I mean, I grew up in Ohio hunting, so I grew up hunting over corn. That's how my father always hunted when he was younger, and that's how I was taught initially. And I've never, since I was 11, I've never had a mature buck like come consistently in on corn. And it wasn't until 2021 that I shot anything mature that was over corn, and he was just kind of swinging by checking for does. So if you want to bait and put corn out, you can. But if you're going to do that, I would suggest get your camera set up, have a few cameras out, and it may help you keep inventory to figure out what's in the area. If you find a buck, if you do that, if you keep inventory and then there's a buck that you want to target or to hunt, then I would say use your cameras to help backtrack that deer to figure out where he's coming from. Find his tracks. If you got your camera on, I like to run video mode, figure out which way he's coming in, from what direction, figure out the wind, and then try and backtrack to figure out where that deer is coming from. I think if you're gonna run bait, that'll be the better way to do it. But I'm gonna agree with what Jacob said. Focusing on them SMZs, that Scott Seals episode with those real tight SMZs, finding those feed trees, and those was a really good episode. I think if you find some of that in that, was it 2,000 acres you said, that'd be really good. If they sprayed right, they're not going to hit everything. So it may make for some really isolated feeding areas, either really isolated browse or feed trees, and it might make them that much better. You just got to find the feed side. And then another thing to think about, like Jacob said, you can get these pockets of thick areas, and it goes back. I'm going to steal Chris's line. I'm not trying to sound like a carrot tugger. I listen to a lot of your guys' podcasts. You get those isolated pockets of thick area where it's been sprayed. I mean, you could create an edge within an edge, right? Going back to Greg's tags. So I mean, it could be that could be something you could look for as well.
Yeah, I'll say this. To me, the more and more I think about that setup, it gets me more and more excited because if it had 5 to 6 years of growth on it, even though stuff's dead, you're going to have sweet gums in different saplings that are 8-9 feet tall and that
Yeah, I mean,
already.
that stuff's in its prime
And the
when
thing,
they sprayed it.
and when they sprayed it, that hard structure is still there. If they don't burn it, that quote unquote thick coverage is still there. It just doesn't have leaves on it, just like it would be in the fall. Exact same setup in the fall. So when it comes to thick cover, I mean, to me that still just gets me so excited because I'd be out there if depending on if they plant it, I'd be out there with a weed eater trimming some lanes through some of that stuff, make it really easy for deer to walk certain areas. That either if you're a bow hunter that comes by 30, 40 yards from your stand or closer, and if you're a gun hunter, have some lanes out in that crap that those deer want to
Cut
walk
a
on.
highway through that sucker.
And just, dude, just sit the gun up and get ready. Okay.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Mason, if you're listening, man, I really would like to see some pictures of the property. Like, I'm just very curious what it looks like, and also just another piece of context. Usually, when they spray, they're spraying like your hilltops and your thicket areas. They're not killing the SMZs out or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with like how the habitat edges and everything form like around that SMZ because they probably didn't kill all the way right up to the SMZ because I have hunted places that they've done this before and they didn't spray all the way right up to the very, very edge of that SMZ because they're trying to not kill those hardwood trees basically because they don't want those hardwood trees to die. That's why they left them there in the first place. Yeah, y'all dropped. I just kept rolling with it.
Kept rolling with it, baby. Kept rolling
like
with
a pro.
But yeah, so that is super interesting. Just again, interesting situation, something that we haven't really had to deal with, but I think you can make a lot out of that situation to really work for you. So awesome, Andrew. What else you got?
That's all I got, man.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, guys, we appreciate y'all joining on the podcast. Real quick, I'll throw this back over to Rick. Rick, how can guys find out more about the Fueled by the Outdoors podcast, listen to some episodes, give y'all a follow, and also maybe follow y'all's Facebook group too?
Yeah, so you can follow us at Fueled by the Outdoors. It's a Facebook group. You can follow us follow the business page there as well. And then we're also on Instagram at Fueled by the Outdoors. And wherever podcasts can be found, we will be there.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, appreciate everybody listening. Make sure you tune in for Monday's episode of the podcast, and make sure you write in with any Q&As that you got, and we'll read them on the Thursday breakdown a week from today. So appreciate everybody listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.